This is how to edit a killer YouTube video to blow up your channel. Watch closely because even the best script with the most stunning footage can be ruined with a bad edit. But what exactly makes a good YouTube edit? What do the top YouTube editors know that we don't? To find out, I spent the last 42 days poring over interviews, listening to talks, and analyzing timelines of the most successful creators in the world. 131 pages of notes later, I realized that great YouTube edits aren't about fancy effects or expensive software. The best YouTube edits, regardless of niche or video type, follow a 5-part formula, and it all starts with an understanding of who the edit is for. You see, there's a common misconception that good editing means fast editing. It's no secret that some of the biggest YouTubers on the platform make fast cuts. So naturally, we assume that in order to make a video that people will actually watch all the way through, we need to do the same. But in making this assumption, we neglect the single most critical component of any edit. And in a recent interview, prolific YouTube strategist Patty Galloway confirmed the exact same thing.
So I would say my advice generally for a young editor is to really understand who you're editing for. I think that's the first and foremost thing.
A video edited for the wrong audience can be jarring at best and flat out unwatchable at worst, even if every technical detail is perfect. Take Mr. Beast, for example. His primarily young male audience expects fast-paced videos packed with non-stop dopamine hits, so his editing reflects that. But imagine if he applied that same editing style to an educational video about early retirement. It would clash completely with the older audience's expectations for clarity and trustworthiness. If your editing choices don't align with who your audience is, what they want, and what they expect, it doesn't matter how clean your cuts are or how beautiful your transitions. They won't watch, your video won't blow up, and your channel won't blow up. So to avoid pouring countless hours into an edit that's doomed to fail from the very first cut, it's worth taking the time to deeply understand who you're editing for first. After you're 90% confident you have a good idea of your audience's wants and needs, you're ready to move on to part 2 of the formula to make a killer YouTube edit to blow up your channel: building your story. We tend to think of editing as the process of making a video look and feel good, and in a way, that's true. But in all of my research to prepare for this video, there's one word that kept coming up again and again.
Story.
And while the idea of story or storytelling may seem like a buzzword that's only relevant if you're writing a book about hobbits or dragons, it actually applies to every YouTube video out there. From a high-stakes challenge, to a cinematic vlog, to even a technical tutorial. Because at its core, every story can be broken down into 3 key elements: setup, progress, and payoff.
Literally all the best performing videos on YouTube have those 3 elements.
Let's break it down. Every video can be broken down into a series of payoffs. These are the main beats or points of your video, the moments that deliver the value that your audience came for. These are the moments that make your video feel worth watching. Each payoff comes with its own setup, which provides the purpose, context, and tone of the upcoming section. It primes your audience to care about what's coming next, and helps give your viewers a sense of structure. And finally, we have the progress, which is anything that takes you from the setup to the payoff. This is where you build tension and curiosity, and where you deliver everything the viewer needs to experience the payoff. And the storytelling framework isn't reserved for classically story-driven challenges. Here's the setup, progress, and payoff map of an educational video, and here it is again applied to a vlog. This structure works across every video type because, at the end of the day, storytelling is a universal concept. Without the right setup, your payoffs are unimportant or confusing. Without the right progress, your payoffs are rushed or unearned. And without the right payoffs themselves, it doesn't matter how many flashy visual effects or fancy transitions you use, your video itself isn't worth watching. So to ensure there's even a story good enough to watch in the first place, the best YouTube editors in the world map out the skeleton of their video before they even touch the timeline.
Actually write down what's happening in the video.
Wow.
I do that all the time. Like I just call it the skeleton. Nothing too creative of the video. I just write the entire script, and then I just go at the top and like, okay, what is the 8 things? Like, what are the 8 different progressions, the 8 scenes or whatever in this video?
This skeleton makes it easier to identify any missing setups, progressions, or payoffs, cut out any unnecessary tangents, and ensure your base story is sound. And if you have any clips or segments that don't fit into a setup, a progression, or a payoff, it probably doesn't belong in the video. Even if you love a clip, maybe it took you forever to film, or maybe it was expensive to make, if it doesn't serve the story, it has to go. This is what top editors call killing your darlings. And while it may feel painful in the moment, trust me, I know. It'll result in a tighter story, a more compelling edit, and overall, a better video. Once you've mapped out your story skeleton and trimmed any excess clips, you now have your starting point, a version of your video that tells a clear and cohesive story. But the best YouTube edits don't just tell the story, they show it. Which brings us to part 3 in making a killer YouTube edit to blow up your channel, showing the story. And this is where it gets interesting, because anyone can just say something, but taking the message or value of your video and finding a way to impart that value visually is what turns a passive viewer into an engaged one. As legendary YouTube editor Hayden Hillier-Smith likes to say, storytelling is the wrong word, you need to be story showing. The best YouTube editors in the world obsess over crafting a compelling visual experience. And to do that, they master the 3 C's of YouTube visuals: content, clarity, and continuity. The content is the what of the edit, the type of visual that's being shown on screen. And in most videos, the base of the visual edit is constructed using 2 primary categories of footage: A-roll and B-roll. A-roll is footage where someone is speaking directly to the camera. The direct-to-viewer presentation creates a unique connection between the speaker and the viewer, making the words spoken feel more personal by showing the emotion and delivery behind them. And then there's B-roll, which is supplementary footage that shows the viewer what you're talking about as opposed to just telling them. And while B-roll can take many forms, it often falls into 5 main shot types: wide shots, which establish location to set the scene; medium shots, which capture the subject and the environment in equal focus; close-ups, which highlight details; and then the extremes: extreme wide shots, which create a sense of scale or awe, and extreme close-ups, which emphasize micro details for dramatic effect. These clips can be used individually to enhance a specific phrase or sentence, or combined into sequences for time lapses, montages, and scenes. Together, A-roll and B-roll create a strong visual foundation, but they don't always convey everything your story needs, which is where other types of visuals come in. Text can emphasize a key point, provide additional context, and help transitions between sections. Screen recordings can help viewers follow along as you explain something. Images or icons can provide visual references for objects or concepts you mention. External clips from other sources can provide context or add humor in a way that feels fresh or unexpected.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
And finally, motion graphics can illustrate key points, often being used to explain complex ideas or seamlessly transition between sections. And while motion graphics can feel intimidating, you can achieve most effects that you want using just 3 keyframes: position to move elements across the screen, scale to make elements larger or smaller, and opacity to fade elements in or out. Combine these basic keyframes with simple cropping and layering, and you can easily create professional-looking visuals that add dimension and polish to your video. But while it may feel tempting to jam as many visuals as humanly possible into your edit, that could end up hurting rather than helping you. Just because you can add in a visual doesn't mean that you should. And overloading your video with unnecessary graphics or cinematic shots risks distracting your viewers from the story itself. Every visual you add should have a purpose. So choose the ones that enhance, rather than distract from, your story. And remember that sometimes it's simplicity that's the most effective. With your visuals chosen, you have the building blocks of a killer YouTube edit to blow up your channel. But how you show your chosen footage and elements is just as, if not more important than, what you show. Which brings us to the 2nd C of YouTube visuals: clarity. And at the heart of visual clarity is one critical question: where do you want your viewers to look? You see, every frame of your video has a focal point, the single most important detail in that moment. It could be you speaking to the camera, a reaction, a specific detail in your B-roll, or anything else. Your job as an editor is to make that focal point crystal clear. Because if your viewer doesn't know where to look, they'll get distracted, confused, or lose interest entirely. The question is, how do you effectively guide their attention? The simplest way is through positioning. Most editors either place their focal point in the center of the frame or follow the rule of thirds, aligning the focal point on the left or right third of the frame. But positioning alone isn't always enough. If the background or competing elements draw too much attention away from your focal point, you can guide the eye by masking out your focal point and creating separation through brightness, where you darken everything other than the focal point, color, where you mute the surrounding tones, and blur, where you add a depth of field effect. Motion can also play a significant role in guiding attention. A quick zoom in or cut in immediately draws the eye to the subject of the zoom, and movement within the shot effectively grabs attention as well. And if you're ever in a pinch, a classic highlight, circle, or arrow can help quite literally point out the main subject of focus. Visual clarity is about guidance. By properly driving attention to the focal point, you make it effortless for viewers to follow along. And when the viewer doesn't have to think about where to look, they're free to stay immersed in the story you're telling. At this point, you've chosen what to show and you've decided how to show it. But even the most beautifully composed shots can feel jarring or disconnected if they don't flow together. Because editing isn't just about individual frames. It's about how those frames interact with one another. Which brings us to the final C of YouTube visuals, continuity. When a cut feels smooth, the story flows. The viewer stays engaged. They're not thinking about the editing at all. It's as if it's invisible. But when a cut feels off, even for a split second, it breaks immersion. It pulls the viewer out of the experience. And that's where you risk losing them. And one of the biggest factors in determining whether or not a cut feels smooth is the type of cut itself. Straight cuts are the simplest and the most common. They're clean and effective for moving between clips, but if your visuals or pacing change too dramatically, they can feel abrupt. J cuts and L cuts blend audio and visuals to soften transitions. A J cut brings in the audio of the next clip before the visual, while an L cut lets the previous clip's audio continue after visuals change. Match cuts can connect to otherwise unrelated clips through visual similarities, creating continuity between scenes. But cuts aren't the only way to connect clips. Transitions like dissolves and crossfades ease the viewer from one shot to the next by blending the two together. Slides are useful when transitioning in and out of full screen graphics, and camera whips carry through motion, keeping the energy up. And if no matter what you try, two clips just don't connect naturally, you can always bridge the gap with full screen visuals like B-roll, text, or a quick animation. But as you make your cuts and transitions, keep an eye out for changes in focal point. Because if the focal point of one clip is in the top left corner and the focal point of the next is in the bottom right, your viewer's eyes have to work to find it. This creates visual friction, making the edit feel chaotic and hard to follow. This most commonly happens with cut-ins and cut-outs, because when you zoom in, the focal point often shifts, which can be jarring for viewers, especially if the cuts happen quickly. Luckily, the solution is quite simple. Every time you cut in, simply adjust the positioning to ensure the focal point stays consistent across shots. And if you do ever need to shift the focal points between clips, just make sure to give your viewers a little more time to adjust, either by using a slower transition or by holding on the shot just a smidge longer. With your focal points aligned, there's only one thing separating you from smooth, frictionless cuts: micro gaps. These are the tiny spaces at the very starts and ends of your clips that create unnecessary breaks between cuts. And removing these minuscule gaps can be the difference between your cuts feeling seamless and stiff. Just take it from Hayden Hillier-Smith.
The micro gaps of silence are sometimes the loudest cuts.
Now, if you think the thought of combing through your entire video clip by clip to remove the micro gaps sounds exhausting, you're absolutely right. which is why many of the top YouTubers and YouTube editors use a tool specifically designed to cut out silences and clean up footage, called GLING. I've been using GLING for a few months now, and it's my absolute pleasure to introduce them as the sponsor of this video. Here's how it works. All you have to do is upload your raw footage to GLING. You can add as many files as you want, and it even offers multicam support, and then decide what you want GLING to help you with. You can cut out just silences, but GLING can also automatically remove bad takes, add in jump cut zooms, and enhance the speech and audio of your footage. These first two features are what initially sold me on GLING, and they've saved me so much time in making my initial rough cut. After you select what you want done, GLING will go through your footage, generate a transcript for you, and automatically cut out anything you don't want. Yes, automatically. And if you want to adjust any cuts GLING made, you can do so directly in the text editor, easily adding sentences back in or taking them out. You can also easily adjust how much silence you want in between your cuts. Tighter cuts will make a video feel more fast-paced, while leaving in more silences will make the video feel more relaxed. You can adjust the length of any cut directly within the timeline, but the best part of GLING is that once you're done, you can export your cuts directly into your editing software, where you can make any further changes you may want. GLING has seriously saved me so much time, and I was genuinely so happy when they reached out asking to sponsor this video. They're constantly finding ways to improve their software, and they have the best team, and I highly recommend checking them out. I was able to get you guys a free extra video edited by GLING if you sign up through my link, so I'll put that in the video description below. Thank you so much to GLING for sponsoring this video. Up to this point, we focus on making individual cuts and transitions feel seamless. But a killer edit doesn't just connect individual clips, it creates continuity across the entire video, which is where style comes in. No, not this type of style. Style is the glue that holds your video together, making it feel cohesive no matter how many different visuals or animations you use. Consistent color grading ensures that every shot feels like it's part of the same story. And when text overlays and motion graphics share the same font, color palette, and animation style, they establish a visual rhythm that not only ties sections together, but also reinforces your brand. These elements work together to unify your video, resulting in a video that both flows well and feels unmistakably yours. So you're building your story, you're choosing your visuals, you're aligning your focal points, and you're using style to glue everything together. The ingredients for your killer YouTube edit to blow up your channel are all there. Well, all your ingredients except one. Because there's one concept that we haven't talked about yet. A concept that determines which edits get merely watched and which get shared, commented on, and remembered for months to come. This concept? Emotion. The best YouTube editors in the world know how to evoke feeling because they know how to leverage the three main drivers of emotion: framing and shot selection, sound design, and pacing. The way a shot is framed can completely shift the way your audience feels, often in ways they don't even notice. A tightly framed close-up makes a moment feel intimate, personal, or intense, which is perfect for emotional reveals, heightened drama, or moments of vulnerability. Compare that to wide shots, which create a sense of distance or isolation. A wide shot of a lone figure standing on a massive landscape can make them feel small and vulnerable. Even subtle movements in framing can make a difference. A slow zoom in builds tension and focus, while a quick cut in adds urgency or humor. And the type of shot you choose within that framing can also dramatically impact the tone and feeling of a scene. Handheld shots feel raw, vulnerable, and intimate. They feel personal, like the audience is right there with you. And they're great for anything that's supposed to feel candid and real. Static shots on tripods, in contrast, feel polished and controlled. They're perfect for tutorials, explainers, or scenes where clarity and focus matter most. And then there are drone shots, which feel grand and cinematic. The sweeping wide angles add a sense of awe, scale, or drama. But you can't talk about emotion without bringing up sound design. Because your choice of backing track and supporting sound effects is one of the fastest and most effective way of influencing how your viewers feel. Take a single clip of someone opening a door, set it to the right song, and it feels like something good is about to happen. But swap that for something eerie paired with an ominous creak, and suddenly it feels suspenseful. The music you choose sets the tone. Break your video up into sections based on how you want the viewer to feel and select your tracks accordingly. Want to build tension? Use a track with a slow, gradual buildup. Need to add energy and excitement? Choose something upbeat with a fast tempo. How about a calm, reflective moment? Opt for something soft, slow, and atmospheric. But it's not just about picking the right track, it's about using it effectively. Sync your key moments to the beat. A dramatic reveal hitting on a downbeat feels intentional and adds impact. Build momentum with crescendos, using tracks that rise in energy and volume to build onto big moments or payoffs. And use fades to smooth out transitions and signal to a viewer that something new is coming. But music only tells one half of the audio story. Sound effects, when used thoughtfully, can immerse your viewers into your video, allowing them to experience your cuts and transitions through another sense. Pops and whooshes can make your visual edits feel snappier, and ambient sound like birds chirping or howling wind can ground your video in a specific place. But subtlety here is key. Overloading your edits with sound effects can feel distracting or overproduced, overwhelming your audience and pulling them out of the story. And the entire subject of sound design is something that can go infinitely deep. The concepts I mentioned here just barely scratch the surface. But if you want a full deep dive video like this exclusively about sound design, let me know in the comments below. The final driver of emotion is pacing. Fast-paced edits with quick cuts and minimal downtime build energy and excitement. Slower pacing with longer shots and deliberate holds creates space for reflection and emotional weight. But the real magic in pacing lies in contrast. By alternating between fast and slow moments, you create peaks and valleys in your edit. High energy sections grab attention, while slower moments give your audience room to breathe. Without this contrast, everything starts to feel monotone. If everything is cut to a 10, nothing is cut to a 10. When you combine framing and shot selection, sound design, and pacing, you're not just editing a video, you're creating an experience. Because a video that looks nice but doesn't make your audience feel something is forgettable. But a video that can evoke emotion, that's the kind of content people remember, share, and come back to. And by this point, it's safe to say that a lot of work has gone into your video. You've built your story, chosen your visuals, created flow, and guided feeling. So as you're making your final cuts and adjustments, how do you know when you're done? How do you know that you've made a killer edit that's good enough to blow up your channel? To evaluate the quality of their edits, the best YouTube editors in the world run their finished video through a series of 3 tests. Which brings us to the 5th and final step in making a killer YouTube edit to blow up your channel. Final checks. The first check is the sound check. Because while we tend to edit our videos in a perfectly silent room with headphones on, not everyone will watch your video under those conditions. They might watch on their phone in the gym, in a noisy cafe, or with the AC blaring in the background. So play your video in a less than ideal environment. Lose the headphones, play something softly on the TV, or open a window. Ask yourself, can you still hear the words clearly? Does the music overpower your voice? And do the sound effects pop too much or get lost entirely? The goal is clarity. If the audio doesn't hold up, tweak the levels, clean up the sound, and ensure that your audience can hear exactly what they need to, no matter where or how they're watching. Once your audio passes the sound check, it's time for the flow check. Watch your video all the way through, but this time as a viewer, not as an editor. Where do you start to feel bored? Where do you feel overwhelmed or rushed? If a section drags, trim unnecessary clips or adjust the pacing of your cuts to keep the momentum going. And if a section feels too fast, add breathing room by holding shots a bit longer. Check that your focal point continuity is sound, or smooth out transitions. And finally, we have a style check. Take a step back and ask yourself, does this video feel like me? Your edit should match the tone, personality, and brand you're going for. Do your music choices, color grading, and sound effects align with your vibe? Does your typography feel cohesive? And does the overall video reflect your voice and what your audience expects from you? Because at the end of the day, a killer edit isn't about technical prowess. It's about creating a video that resonates with your audience and communicates who you are as a creator. If your edit passes all 3 checks, sound, flow, and style, congratulations. You've just edited a killer YouTube video to blow up your channel. I know we've covered a lot in this video, and for good reason. Good editing is simultaneously incredibly important and incredibly complex. And although I threw a lot at you today, if there's anything to remember in editing a killer YouTube video to blow up your channel, it's understand who you're editing for, build your story, show your story, evoke feeling, and pass your checks. To help you out, you can even save this guide to reference every time you edit a video. I'll put a link to download it for free, as well as a link to try out GLING in the video description below. And here's the thing, editing is a skill. And like any other skill, it takes time, patience, and practice to get better. The best editors in the world didn't start out by making perfect edits. They started right where you are now, making cuts, tweaking clips, and learning from every single upload. And besides, there's no such thing as the perfect edit anyway. Because one of the greatest beauties of YouTube is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Yes, this video provides you with frameworks and models of thinking to guide you. But if you spend a few hours on YouTube, you'll quite quickly realize that there is no one right or wrong way to do it. Every creator has their own style, their own goals, and their own way of bringing their visions to life. And the more you edit, the more you'll discover what feels true to you. So keep editing, keep experimenting. You might not get it all right in the first go, or the second, or the third, but each time you'll get a bit closer. Pick one concept to improve with each edit and just keep going. Because sooner or later, your big break will come. You're just one killer edit away. But in order for someone to watch your edit, they need to click on your video in the first place. So to learn how to make a killer thumbnail to blow up your channel, click here. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you can, keep creating, and I'll see you in the next video.